Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sound Stewardship's webinar. I have the pleasure of introducing Jessie Harting. She works for Zander in their ID theft. She's been there for 15 years, and she does a little bit of everything for Zander, whether that's dealing with case study research, small business protection, restoration and assessment of claims, product development and enhancement, and then providing ID theft group benefits to corporations. So she does it all, and so we're super excited to have you on today, Jessie.
Thanks, Derek.
Our June webinar here, and looking forward to hearing all the helpful tips and tricks and kind of case studies that you come across to kind of help us with this issue that is kind of touches everyone in some capacity, whether you're trying to get protection or trying to clean something up or whatever. So we're excited for today here.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you guys having me, Derek. So thank you. But yeah, so we're just going to hop right into it. Zander Identity Theft Solutions, we've been around for almost 20 years now. And really, the goal of our plan is to provide an affordable identity theft protection plan while also, keeping up to date with the most recent trends in the hacker world and responding to those. So I'll kind of run you through what we've got, and we'll have a Q&A at the end, and I'll be able to answer a lot of your questions. But here we go. So every 2 seconds, there is a new identity theft victim. Really, you hear about it all the time in the news with breaches. But it's as simple as even somebody taking something from your mailbox. So it can happen in a multitude of ways. I'm sure you've heard about some of the breaches that have happened. Target was probably one of the first ones that came about, and really it just breached very minimal personal information. Debit cards were breached, but things like that can actually get replaced, right? You can cancel and replace a card. But when we move into the more sophisticated breaches, such as Equifax, JP Morgan Chase, one that's not listed on there is Blue Cross Blue Shield. That's really where the hackers are grabbing your identity. We consider your identity to be your social security number, not your Facebook profile, not anything on Instagram or Twitter. We really consider it to be that social security number because that is tied to everything that you do. It's tied to health insurance, life insurance. It's tied to any kind of applications for loans, your mortgage. It's everywhere. And anybody from, a baby all the way through even past death, you keep the same social security number. So it's with you. It's the one piece of information that is really with you forever. But what can thieves do with your information that they obtain through identity theft and through these breaches? So they can commit child identity theft. That's where they take the social of a child and go get a line of credit, because typically they know parents are not checking credit reports. They're not looking to see if their child even has a credit report, because at 6 years old, they shouldn't. They can steal money from your bank accounts. I'm sure some of you have either gotten a fraudulent charge on a debit card or, from a site that you've never visited, things like that. Liquidate retirement accounts. They can steal tax refunds. That is incredibly common. And just a quick side note from that, stealing tax refunds, what I would recommend is just file as soon as possible. As soon as you can file, once January hits, go ahead and file your tax refund. You'll be less likely to be a victim of tax fraud. Benefits fraud, they can actually go into like an emergency room and get medical attention in your name. And the problem there is that medical information is then changed forever on your identity. If they say that they are allergic to a medication, then you might get a different medication down the road that is not going to be something that you can use. Social security fraud, crimes being committed in your name. We actually did have a client once who was pulled over, and somebody had been getting tickets, and there was all these unpaid tickets in their name. Employment fraud, you probably unemployment fraud is actually it's quadrupled since the pandemic. That's just where they're getting paid unemployment. It's pretty common. It's very unfortunate, and it takes a long time to fix. But employment fraud, we see a lot of people go and get employment in their name if they don't have a social security number, or if they are previous criminals themselves and need a job that is going to do a background check. They use your social instead. They can sell the title to your home. Family members can commit fraud. I unfortunately did just have a member who the mother was stealing money from the daughter's bank account. Ruining your credit. I'm sure if you've ever been a victim of identity theft, if somebody got lines of credit in your name, you would see that score is going to go way down, and then you're less likely to obtain a loan or a line of credit in the future. And of course, they can take out loans in your name as well. So where Zander comes into play, we have a three-pronged approach. We cover all these types of fraud that we just talked about. We are one of the rare companies that does cover even family fraud. We monitor and alert. That's the very first thing that we do. We restore your identity. We get it back to pre-theft status. And then if you are out of pocket any funds, like gas money, or if you had to mail something in, or even if you had to hire an attorney, we reimburse you any of those costs. So what can Zander do for you exactly? So we're going to kind of get into what I think are the most important points of our service directly. Zander, we take over the recovery work. So this is a little bit different than your common breach offerings that you might see. You know, there's a lot of different breaches that have happened. Somebody mentioned AT&T in the Q&A. So a lot of times those breaches are going to offer just credit monitoring. So they're just going to let you know that something is happening. It's not actually going to fix it. And that's where Zander comes in. We do the restoration work. We call on your behalf. If you decide you want us to make the calls on our own without you, we can get a limited power of attorney to call without you on the phone during your work hours. But we do all the work to restore your identity, providing true white glove service by a certified recovery specialist. So our specialists are actually licensed, specifically licensed for this kind of work. And we partner with a company called CSID. They take over the entire restoration process from start to finish. And the unique thing about Zander is once you are assigned a restoration agent, they stay with you through the whole process. A lot of our competitors provide what's known as assisted recovery. So they kind of give you a packet of information on what to do and how to fix it. The problem that we see with that is our members, for one reason or another, forget that Chase Bank hasn't called them back to, fill out the affidavit form. And so they lose track of the process. And 5 years later, if they're not our member, they'll be stuck with this identity fraud on their credit report. And 5 years later, Chase won't even look at it. So that's why we make sure to take care of it right at the beginning when it happens, so that it goes through to completion, so that you don't have that on your report anymore. Proactive monitoring and alerts. We monitor your personal information and alert you when changes are detected, dramatically reducing your risk of becoming a victim. So we have two plans. Both of them provide monitoring services. Our elite plan has a little bit more extensive monitoring services. But what these alerts do, it lets you know if hackers are exchanging your information out there, or if your social security number is popping up with another name, address, alias. We'll go through those specific monitoring pieces in a second. But we really just want to let you know that your information is at risk. Let's take a look at it, review, and if something needs to be removed, then our restoration team will step in. So Zander repays you up to $1 million for stolen funds and expenses. If you have a family plan with us, it's actually $2 million in coverage per policy period. But these $1 million in reimbursement and stolen funds can be anything from gas mileage, postage, the attorney fees that we mentioned. If you have to show up in court, not only would it obviously cover the attorney fees, but it would pay for parking, babysitters, your lunch out, all that good stuff, all the way up to $1 million. We do have $1 million in stolen funds protection. We have paid out some claims on that. Typically, it's when a bank sees that it's fraud, but the member is outside of the 90-day window with the bank. Because most of the time when our restoration team has a fraudulent charge situation with a member, they contact the bank to dispute it. And 99% of the time, the bank gives those funds back to our member. But if for some reason they did not, that's when you can go in and make a claim on the $1 million reimbursement section and get those funds back to you. Kids are included for free in the family plan. You can protect your children's personal information at no additional cost when you enroll in the family plan. So some other pieces here that I'll address in our family membership. The family membership covers the primary and a secondary adult. Really, it can be any two adults. We don't have any boundaries around that. It can be you and a spouse or partner. It can be if you've got an older parent living with you, they can utilize that secondary adult membership. There's just two adult memberships that can be included on that family plan. And then for the dependents, for the kids, you can have any non-minor dependents that will receive all services, or I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Any minor dependents under the age of 18 can be included for all services. Now, we are the only company that does allow non-minor dependent coverage on our family plan. So any kids over the age of 18 can get restoration, reimbursement, and stolen funds protection. And lost wallet protection as well. So if you've got a kiddo that's in college, you just need to be able to claim them as a dependent, and they have to either be in school or live in your household, and then they can be included on that restoration, reimbursement, and lost wallet protection. Customer service, we have it 24/7, 365. So sorry. Give me a second here. I'm going to make sure that that's off so it doesn't bother you guys. My team's trying to ping me during this presentation. I forgot to let them know that I am unavailable. Our customer service call center is available 24/7, 365. So yes, we are open on Christmas Day. Our US-based support team is available around the clock. You can report an identity theft event. You can also call in and they can help place a fraud alert for you and get you in the right direction. If something's going on at 2 a.m., they can help you update billing, help you log in, all of the good things. And then we protect against all types of identity theft. So we cover financial fraud, medical ID theft, tax fraud, criminal ID theft, Social Security fraud, child ID theft, benefits fraud, employment fraud, and home title fraud. I think home title fraud is probably one of the things you hear most about in the marketing world. So we absolutely do cover it in both of our plans. And by cover, I mean if somebody were to obtain the title to your home, we would do the restoration work to clear it up for you. In our elite plan, we have home title monitoring. So that actually lets you know if something's been changed on the title to your home. So I'll kind of get into our actual product services. We have essential and elite. We also have individual and family coverage, but really for like the types of products that we have, Essential and Elite are our two products. Then you can break it down as far as if you're going to be on your own plan or with your family, and if you're going to pay monthly or annually. But our Essential product includes unlimited restoration services and personal information monitoring. So some of our friendly competitors call this dark web monitoring. And I'll let you in on a little secret. Our owner does not like the scare tactics, so he calls it personal information monitoring as far instead of dark web monitoring. But they do the exact same thing. Really, they're just searching the internet to see the dark web, to see where your information is being exchanged between hackers online. This could be anything from your social to your email address to phone number, passport, medical ID number, retail store membership cards. The list goes on and on. So you can enter in this information into our system and we'll see if it's being exchanged and alert you that, hey, the bad guys, they got your debit card number. Social Security trace monitoring. This is a service that alerts you if there's any other name, address, or alias that is associated with your Social Security number. The change of address monitoring is something, it's actually my favorite because it's very simple. But the reason we have it is because thieves like to change your address when they go and get a line of credit in your name. And I don't know if any of you have tried to change your address with the post office recently, but it is fairly easy. Some post office services don't require any verification. Some do. They're kind of starting to get a little bit better, so that's good. But some require nothing. And so this actually alerts you to let you know if your address has been changed with the U.S. Postal Service, because the thieves are going to try to change that so they can get a line of credit and keep racking up debt for longer periods of time without you knowing. So it's going to get diverted to a different address, and it's possible you may not know about it. $1 million in reimbursement, $1 million in stolen funds protection. Wallet protection services is something that, you know, in this day and age when we all have smartphones, you know, it is pretty easy to Google a number, you know, for your bank. If you lose your wallet and say, oh, I need to call my bank, and you Google the number and it pops up. But what I really do like about this service is Google has so many different numbers. A lot of times scammers can also put incorrect phone numbers, and what looks like might be US Bank is not actually US Bank. So what I like about this is it is a valid number for you to call, and you can just call our restoration team. We'll go over it with you. We can even pull a credit report if you're somebody that might have lines of credit that have been closed forever and you can't remember, you know, oh, but I had that card open, but I don't remember the number, but I don't really remember the company. Maybe it's changed. We can pull a credit report to look up all of this information for you. So that's open 24/7, that specific service as well. Customer service is 24/7, 365. We do have family plans. Children are included for free. We send out data breach updates anytime that there's a large breach. Equifax, AT&T, JP Morgan Chase, Facebook, eBay, all of the big breaches. We want to make sure that you know that they happened. And then we also want to make sure you know how to combat it. So right now we send out credit report reminders because every consumer can actually check their credit report for absolutely free. Every single week, you can get a credit report from each one of the bureaus. It used to be once a year, but since the pandemic, there was so much identity theft that occurred during the pandemic. The annualcreditreport.com made it available to consumers to check their credit report on a weekly basis. So we are always encouraging you to find a time to check that credit report to make sure that everything looks good. Transparently, I do not check my credit report every week, but I also have other things on my account. Like I place what's called a fraud alert, and it's just an extra layer of protection in my eyes. It throws up red flags and asks additional security questions when somebody's trying to obtain a line of credit in your name. So, like, for example, even when I did something, when I went to go purchase a car and I had to open a loan for it, I went and I asked, they asked me additional questions at the time when I was there in the dealership. And so that was very simple. A hacker, when they have to answer additional questions, they're pretty much going to run away from it. So they're just going to go on to the next victim. So I do like that fraud alert. That's a fun little tip and trick for you. It's free. I suggest doing it through Experian. And you can place it for an entire year. So our elite product includes everything in the essential plan. Plus, it includes some new monitoring items. We have home title monitoring. That's incredibly popular right now, the home title monitoring. To be honest, we weren't seeing much of it until the radio shows started talking about it. So in my humble opinion, I think the marketing gave the idea to the criminals and then it started to ramp up. However, we do see it. I have seen a few cases come through with our clients, and we've been able to successfully get their land back to them. I think that's actually in one of my case studies that I'll share with you. But we'll let you know of any changes that are made to your title. Financial transaction monitoring. This will let you basically sign into your bank accounts, and it lets you set limits. You can set it to $50, although I don't recommend that. You can set it to $200. You can set it to $500, $1,000. But our system will notify you if there's any charges over that amount. The VPN and antivirus, I kind of package those together. They are our cybersecurity package. Some of you may not know what a VPN is. So the best way that I can describe it is it's like a little bubble that basically keeps the hackers from being able to look over your shoulder when you're signing in online. And so they can't watch you log in with keystrokes and passwords, and they can't obtain your information. So really, in reality, what it does, it disguises your IP address so that they can't do that. But I prefer the bubble method. The antivirus protection, that's just like any other antivirus out there. There's plenty of them. And quite honestly, there are a lot of free options, especially if you have purchased a new computer recently. You almost always get free antivirus protection on that computer. But it's just little soldiers in the background fighting off all of the viruses. Experian Credit Lock. This is really unique in the fact that when we were talking about fraud alerts earlier, there's fraud alerts, and then there's freezes, and then there's credit locks. So the fraud alert, it still allows somebody to get a line of credit in your name, okay? Or it even allows you. That's why I have it on my credit personally, because I know that I can answer the security questions when the time comes. For a freeze, it will not allow anyone to get a line of credit. It just completely freezes your credit. Some people prefer this, especially if they do not have any intentions of opening up new loans and things like that. The Experian Credit Lock is a little bit of an in-between for a fraud alert and a freeze. So what a credit lock does, you literally can go into our Zander app, and with the click of a button, just you press lock, and it locks your credit report, just like a freeze would. Okay, so that means when it's locked, that means even you will not be able to get a line of credit. But you can go in and unlock it with the click of a button as well. Sit down somewhere, apply for the line of credit, get approved, walk right back out the door, and lock it right back up. So the reason that that's different than a freeze just takes about 24 to 48 hours to thaw. So a credit lock is just more useful for someone who is possibly thinking about getting a line of credit. Financial account takeover monitoring. This plan actually, this product will let you know if somebody opens up a new bank account in your name or makes changes to your existing bank account. And the reason we found that that was important, especially during the last 5-ish years, we saw that hackers were opening up bank accounts in our client's name and our client didn't have access to it. And then they would go to the legit bank and siphon money from that bank to this other account that our client didn't have access to. Or another way that they would siphon money is they would add themselves as a user on our client's existing bank account, and then they would siphon the funds out to their own bank account, of which the client didn't have access to as well. But see, the banks don't have anything in place to kind of combat that because it looks like it's a valid user. If you're added on the bank account, John Smith looks like it's supposed to go to that other bank account with John Smith on it because they added themselves as a user. So that's why we alert you whenever a new bank account is open or when any information is changed on your bank account. So with the Elite Family Plan, so family as opposed to individual, you get protection for any 2 adults. Children are covered for free. There is adult dependent benefits. So that's those kids 18 and up. $2 million for stolen funds and expense reimbursement. And for the VPN and antivirus protection, you can secure up to 20 devices with those services. So 20 devices for VPN, 20 devices for antivirus. For the individual plan, it is 10. So 10 devices for VPN and 10 devices for antivirus for individual, 20 for family. So this is my favorite part because I really like to know. I'm probably one of those people that just likes to know how things work. And I like to see these stories get a good ending. So I'll run you through. I've got a few case studies. Some are a little bit lighter than others. But this client specifically was trying to cancel their services with malware bites. They called the number that was listed. Long story short, they were connected with a fraudster instead of malware bites. That's where they Googled a number and the fraudster made a fake website, looked like a legit phone number, but it wasn't. But it wasn't the company Malware Bytes. So basically, this fraudster convinced our member to complete all these forms and log into their online banking account. This person ended up scamming our client into sending them money to the tune of about $50,000. This client was very suspicious of what was happening with all of these steps that the fraudster was making in order to cancel their Malware Bytes account. And quite honestly, there's a lot more to the story there. But basically, they just kept telling them to pay them money or go get different gift cards and things like that as well. But they were really convincing. Luckily, our member ended up disconnecting the call. And then the thief immediately called their bank, or the client also called the bank and us. The charge luckily was reversed by the bank, and we guided the member to full resolution, and we got their $50,000 back in their pockets. This is really not a typical situation. A lot of scams don't end up like this because the banks sometimes aren't willing to get the money back into your pockets. And it's one of those cases that if you do willingly give your information to a thief, it's not something that we can prove that you didn't really want to do it. So a lot of times when you're looking at insurance, I know somebody had a question about the claims process. So if you ever willingly give your information to somebody, for the underwriter of the policy assurance, there's no way for them to know. So if you ever start giving your financial information to somebody, I would stop and think and see if they can verify some information about you. If you really are a client in their system, they should have a security question they can ask you. And if they're not asking you the right security question, it's not the right company. And I would hang up. I'm very, very careful about who I give my money to online, and do a lot of research before I actually complete that step. So this is a little bit of a heavier story. I will just give you a heads up on it. So I received a call from a member who was extremely upset and told me that her child recently passed away. The child was about 6 years old, and this mom also had about 5 other kids. Her husband was a disabled vet, and the mom, was talking to me about how she was the only one that was bringing in money, but she received a bill in the mail for 6 lines of credit that were applied for under her deceased child's name. Obviously, this was terrifying and heartbreaking. Zander was able to open up a restoration case. This is where we can sometimes get limited power of attorney for the member so that she didn't have to deal with it. And we were able to clear this up for her and dispute all of the fraud without her needing to be on the phone. The fraud was cleared and the mother was able to go on with her life as planned. So the people on the right actually were people that were convicted of child fraud in Hawaii. They were living under the identities of 2 deceased Texas infants, and they lived with those identities for more than 30 years and had even disguised themselves as KGB officers at one point to kind of run away from getting caught. And, they stated they were associated with some kind of background undercover crime. But they face up to 17 years in prison once they're convicted. So it does happen. Title fraud. This was one of my clients that had somebody living on their land in Colorado, but the police wouldn't do anything about it. Our member lived in North Carolina, and come to find out, this thief had forged a rent-to-own records and submitted it to the recorder's office, which caused the police to feel like the thief had a right to live there. Once we were able to prove that the documents were false and not legitimate, we were able to contact all of the real estate reporting agencies involved, who finally updated their records to reflect the real owner of the land, which was our member. So our member was finally able to get their land back, and they were able to sell it because they couldn't sell it with that person living on it fraudulently. And it's not currently inhabited by that thief. So medical fraud, we had a client who had someone go to an emergency room and used their our client's benefits information to get medical attention in another state. Our client didn't even live in that state. Our members started receiving bills for emergency room services and surgeries that they didn't ever receive. Basically, they contacted us and we disputed the claims with the hospital and billing company to ensure our client did not owe this money. And we also made sure to remove all of the fraud off the client's medical records so that their medical attention would not be affected down the road. But, I think it's important to note too, it's not just medical attention. It's, your life insurance, rates can be affected by this information. Obviously, your health insurance rates can be affected. So there's so many different avenues that either get forgotten about if somebody doesn't have our service, or they just don't know to contact because they don't realize all of the different spider webs that it causes. So that's the end of our case studies. But we always like to bring to light that child identity theft is real. And there were 10 million kids who were victims of identity theft in 2018. That's only of the cases that were reported. So that means that's, there's other cases out there that are probably still ongoing. But schools, doctors' offices, daycare centers, even school lunch computers, have your child's information connected to it through their systems. We're all using computers nowadays. Kids are taking home Chromebooks left and right. And all of these places have suffered data breaches, which expose your kids' personal identifiable information. So that's why kids are covered for free under our family plan. And Zander will do all of the restoration work for the kids as well. And we make sure that everything gets back to pre-theft status. So we do have a mobile app that you can utilize. I kind of talked about it a little bit with the credit lock button. There is a button on our app that you can just lock your credit report with, but you can also get all of our alerts sent directly to your phone through push notifications. It's on iPhone and Android. And that pretty much does it for me. So I'll go ahead and come back to Derek and see if you want to start the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, Jessie. Yeah, I was taking some notes here left and right on all the helpful things you guys do with Zander ID theft. So
perfect.
Some questions that came through during the presentation, and you might have kind of already answered them, but just making sure they're stated, is how often does the title fraud actually come up? Does this occur often for your customers?
No, not at all. I honestly, there's home title monitoring companies out there that just do home title fraud, and that's it. No other identity theft fraud, and they charge $20 a month. Our plan is our family plan is like 15.
Yeah. And then another question came in. I think it's around the email updates, or can be text alerts if they're signing up for that type of alerts there. But so a question was, if we have this and get an email notice that something has been found, what action do we need to take? Is this just to let us know, or is it something that is actionable?
That's a fantastic question as well. So some of the alerts, we kind of have different colors, red, orange, yellow. A lot of times we're in the yellow category. So you might get a notice. You'll always get an alert from us, and it prompts you to log into your account for privacy purposes to view that alert. We're never going to send something via email or even via text that says, hey, your debit card number ending in 5901 has been compromised. We will always prompt you to log into your account, number one. But it is definitely something that you can set up through the push notifications. We currently do not do text notifications. So it'll come through either your push or your email.
Okay. Yeah.
But as far as like severity, it's going to kind of give you some steps once you log in. And it'll let you know whether to contact us and number one, you can always contact us. We like to talk to our clients.
Yeah.
And we're here 24/7. So if you've got concerns, I still have family friends. Every time they get an alert, they pop my cell phone and they text me, and I'm like, yes, Joanne, it's the same alert.
Yeah.
Yep, same thing. Your email.
That's fun.
Yeah, your email was found on the dark web. But sometimes even those alerts can differ though too, because if your email address is found on the dark web, we want to know, was your password included on that? Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't. So anytime you get an alert, honestly, I just go ahead and change my password
Yeah.
just for good measure. But it'll kind of include some steps there, and you can always call our call center too.
Good. And so, Xander, you mentioned some other companies that do like home title monitoring. That's all they do. But another big monitoring company out there, LifeLock. So, how does Xander ID theft kind of differ from LifeLock?
Such a great question. I've been answering it for 15 years and it is ever changing. So, big scheme of things is price. Okay, that we're going to look at numbers, and Zander is more affordable. We are endorsed by Dave Ramsey, and so because of that, we keep our prices extremely affordable. We're financially conscious. So there's that. LifeLock does some of the monitoring components that we don't feel are necessary in an ID theft product. And I'll tell you, one of them is like social media monitoring. Your identity, number one, is not on social media. I realize it's a reputational risk. But there's not actually anything that a thief can do. And quite honestly, I've used social media monitoring before. The way that it is coded, it alerts you of foul language. It alerts you if suspicious pictures are involved. It's not really alerting you of anything identity wise. And a lot of times too, it's just more reputational based, and we don't feel that it's something, if you're on social media, you already know that it's happening. So we don't really see the point in charging you an arm and a leg for something that's not really affecting your identity.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things, but quite honestly, the biggest difference is going to be customer service. And I know that sounds simple, but we take customer service very seriously. We are a people organization is what I like to call us. But we are also employee owned, and that is different. It's something that each one of our employees takes our success very seriously. If there's ever a problem, we take it incredibly serious. We make sure that it gets figured out. Right. Yeah. We want to make sure that the situation is made right. But we also make sure that our clients feel like we are holding their hand throughout the entire process. We all have direct extensions. That is something, just for example, LifeLock, they will not give you, if you call them today, there is no option to talk to the same person that you did yesterday. Or email even. Yeah. And so we encourage that. We encourage the personal relationship, which is something I could go on and on about in today's society. But we encourage that with our members for them to feel good about our product.
Yeah. So some questions that came through is, what is Zander thinking about AI and voice, facial, and what steps do we need to take to protect against it?
Scary stuff. That AI is scary stuff is what we think. So transparently, we're not fans, but we are working with law enforcement. Our product development team has been working with law enforcement to kind of figure out how to combat this, because quite honestly, I don't think that our society is ready to combat it. I think we created it and we don't really know how to get beyond it. So some things that, how to figure out how to avoid being a victim of, the voice recognition things. Simply don't answer your phone if it's a number that you don't know. The old stuff, but it's tried and true, and let it go to voicemail. If it's a legitimate company, they'll leave a message and you can call them back on your own time. But that is definitely some of the old ways that we feel like are still good to this day.
Yeah, that's good. Another question that come through here is, so, people, there's breaches all the time. You had that slide there since back in 2005. So some of the more recent ones, like there's, things with Medicare and then AT&T this year. Mm-hmm. And so, they typically have a free credit monitoring in place, for a year or so. And so, some people might already have like ID protection through ID Shield or Zander. So there's not, do you really see a need for signing up for these credit monitoring when you're part of these breaches?
Yeah. So, yes and no. So, what this credit monitoring, so Zander as a whole, we do not offer credit monitoring as a service. So, I'll just kind of go ahead and address that. We don't have credit monitoring at all. And the reason why is because you can check your credit report for free on a weekly basis. And that's what we recommend, because even with credit monitoring, you still have to log in to view your report. Okay. So I realize, sometimes it's at the fingertips. Oh, I get a notification to remind me to do this. I get that. But Dave Ramsey doesn't feel like it is a valuable service to pay for credit monitoring when there's so many opportunities that you can get it for free, either through annualcreditreport.com or through the free breach options that come out. The issue with the free breach options is a lot of time it's just kind of covering the bases for the company that was breached. So that means the protection really isn't super comprehensive. I would say 75% are what is known as assisted recovery, and probably about another like 15% is no recovery. A lot of them have no recovery. And then maybe the rest is a small percentage is full restoration. Quite honestly, I have never heard that before, where it's full restoration on a breach. Most of the time, you're just going to get the assisted recovery. So that's where you call in and they say, okay, call this person. We're going to send you a packet and, kind of send you on your way. Yeah. So long story short, it's not really full protection, but I recommend, what I've said to my family and friends, there's no harm in opting into it if it's free. You can opt into it if you want. I will let you know that sometimes when you do opt into taking the credit monitoring, if there was ever a class action lawsuit, if you opt into the monitoring, then you're not able to join in that suit if you get the monitoring. So just know that, like, if a company is breached, AT&T, and you take the monitoring, you can't seek further action against them, is basically what it says.
Yeah. So there's a trade-off there.
Yeah.
And so it's like, why do that if you're going to be diligent in checking your reports?
Right.
You need to check it anyway. So
right. But as far as like, is it duplicating what Zander's doing? No, it's actually I would say 99% of the time it's not. But we always recommend you can call us and ask us directly. We usually our agents have a list of breaches that occurred, the types of protection, and they can kind of walk you through maybe what it has and how we can help.
Okay, good. You had mentioned, hey, when I get these alerts, it just is a good practice to update my password. And I noticed with the elite features, there is a password manager that makes it easier to update passwords. And so kind of take us maybe behind the scenes there. When it says password manager on that features, who is kind of managing those passwords?
So that is managed through the same company that does our VPN and antivirus protection, which is Ultra. So Ultra, you'll log your passwords with them. Sometimes they'll even provide suggestions on passwords. So they kind of provide a few different options for you on that password manager. But it's directly through Ultra. There's a tab on like your membership app where you can go to the VPN and antivirus and password manager site.
Okay, good. Some questions come to mind is this is covering the person no matter if they're stateside or international. Like say we're traveling and something happens, it's still going to be covered because you're covering Derek Hensley no matter where Derek Hensley's at, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, good. And then what is the kind of the fine print around hey, I've been out of the country I'm on sabbatical. I've been kind of not checking things as much as I should have, and I've been out of pocket for 3 months. I come back, I'm kind of getting into the swing of things. Like, oh, looks like there might have been an issue. Like, what's the time frame of like, hey, this event happened, and you let us know it happened on X date. You let us know on Y date. We're not gonna be able to do something on that.
So that's such an interesting question because really it's from the point of discovery. So not necessarily the point of when it happened, but point of discovery. You need to notify us within the point of discovery within 90 days. So if you were on sabbatical and you came back and this had happened 3 months ago and you're just notifying us, as long as you notify us within 90 days of you finding out, you're good.
Gotcha. Okay, good.
But yeah, you can't. And quite honestly, I've had things, some situations where it happened 6 months ago. So every once in a while we can, you know, pop in, and help the member with that too. So restoration is always available no matter how long ago it happened. We can always work to get that removed. It's really the reimbursement piece that gets tricky because that's through an underwriter. They have a little bit more of the lines, in the sand there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Another question came through on the password manager. And I don't know if you're super familiar with some other password managers out there, but a question was the pros and cons of using a third-party password manager, like maybe 1Password versus Zander's password manager through Ultra.
This is a tricky question for me. I don't use a password manager myself. I don't like them. But like our company stance is, as long as you're changing passwords every couple of months, you're good. Whether you use a password manager or not. Quite honestly, we don't market our password manager too much, only because as an identity theft company, we really enjoy our clients having some say in their passwords. And a lot of times password managers assign you certain passwords. Mm-hmm. So that's not really something that we have super strong feelings on.
Yeah, gotcha. All righty. Well, thank you, Jessie, for taking some time out of your day to educate us around the Zander ID theft. All it can do, like I said, I was taking tons of notes, and it's just really helpful. One thing that really stood out to me was like the medical side of things. Like I didn't realize how that could impact even like the medication you could receive later in life. I was like, oh my goodness. And so there's just all these things. I'm like, okay, I full disclosure, I personally use Zander ID theft and have been very pleased with it. Luckily, I haven't had to go through the claims process, but it's just good to have that insurance in the background there, and knowing that there's, like you said, that white glove kind of restoration team ready to help serve members. And so it's good to have that on your side.
Did you, and I know that there was a question that came in earlier. Did you want me to touch on the claims process?
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Real quick. Okay. Yeah. So the fun stuff, right? So claims process, everything is a little different. So let's just say somebody got a line of credit in your name. You're going to hit our restoration team first. Okay. So our restoration team is going to go through and figure out how to clear it up for you from the start. But let's say that for some reason they can't, and it goes to court. You take it to court, and those attorney fees will be submitted for reimbursement after. I know somebody asked, is it before or after, is it money up front or is it a reimbursement? We don't give you money to pay it. It's something that basically you give us a receipt or send us the invoice, and then Assurance is the underwriter. They would send the money for the claim, similar to like any kind of house claims. It's really, a lot of it is pretty similar to that.
Okay. But we can do, a member could just say, hey, Zander, here's the invoice I received. I don't have to pay it, but you're going to work with Assurance to get it paid. They don't have to.
Depending on where the invoice came from. So If it's attorney fees, a lot of times that can happen. Yes.
Okay.
But sometimes, so for example, I had a client who had $8,000 in fraudulent charges on their account. Okay. So that was money that was already gone.
Yeah.
So, in that case, that money was already stolen from their debit card for 2 years. Actually, it was crazy small charges. It wasn't 8,000 just, in one chunk.
Yeah,
I mean, we're talking like
yeah.
$10.99 charges, like hundreds of them for 2 years. So all of that money was gone. And so, yeah, they received a check from Assurant after that.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Thank you for catching that one there.
Yeah. I know it's not like a fun one that anybody wants to talk about, but hey, we all need to know. That's how I buy insurance. I like to be transparent with all of our products, and I want to know what I'm buying and what it covers and what it doesn't. So
yeah, that's great. Like I said, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day, and thank you guys for hopping on for this webinar. We'll send the recording out and some helpful materials to supplement that as well. But so stay tuned for the follow-up notes from the webinar. And hope everybody has a great rest of their summer. Take care.
Bye. Thanks. Bye, guys.